Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So today we are going to talk about accepted terminology, slang, a philosophical concept, pirates, and a whole bunch of other stuff, all in an attempt to pin down what we should call those guys down south. The philosophical concept we're going to discuss is something we're going to be revisiting. It's something I've talked about on this channel before, but it's been more than a year, and it's worth talking about again, because to be honest, when it comes to base philosophical ideas that we discuss on this channel, this may be the most important one to me. So I don't mind talking about it again. Okay, so those guys down south. The ones that got caught in Venezuela. Are they contractors or are they mercenaries? What's the difference between a pirate and a privateer? Virtually indistinguishable when they're in the field, like in the ocean, whatever. They engage in a lot of the same behavior. What's the real difference? One has a permission slip. One has a letter of marque, a authorization from a state, a government, a ruler. It's okay to engage in this behavior that is normally wrong as long as you're doing it for me. That's the difference. That's the tangible difference. It's the difference in the terminology. Take it a step further. What's the difference between a pirate and a navy when that navy is engaging in operations to disrupt opposition shipping? Not much. Not really. The involvement of state, the involvement of a government, a ruler. That's it. St. Augustine told a story about Alexander the Great. And the story is that he caught a pirate. And he's talking to the pirate, and he's basically like, what are you doing? You're disrupting trade. You're taking stuff that isn't yours. You're a thief. And the pirate's like, what are you doing? You're doing all of the exact same stuff. But because I have one boat, I'm a pirate. Because you have a fleet, you're an emperor. It goes to the idea that might makes right. More importantly, it goes to the idea that legality is morality, and it's not. The two things aren't the same, because more than likely, the mighty are the ones that wrote the rules, that wrote the laws. They wrote them to benefit themselves. They can justify their own behavior that way. Legality and morality are not the same thing. And a permission slip doesn't really change the moral implications of what's happening. It just changes the terminology. Now, the discussion about these guys down there, it really boils down to who you believe the legitimate government is down there. It's really what it boils down to, because as far as we can prove, it was all in-house. It was contracted by Venezuelans, an action that occurred in Venezuela. Now, if you believe that Maduro is the legitimate ruler, well, then they're mercenaries. If you believe the opposition party is the legitimate ruler, well, then they're contractors. The actions would be the same. Now, I'm in the U.S. The United States doesn't recognize Maduro as the legitimate guy. So here, they're probably going to be viewed as contractors. Now, one of the reasons I would suggest that this terminology be taken back, because there's also slang terminology within that industry. Just to keep it simple, if a contractor ever refers to somebody as a mercenary, they're a horrible human being. It's really what it means. It doesn't have anything to do with any of the other stuff. But I would suggest that we settle on terminology. Either they are all contractors or they are all mercenaries. If you want to say that anybody who picks up a gun for money is a mercenary, cool, fine, whatever. That would be more beneficial to me. Because if we allow it to be politicized, then we're playing into the idea that the government can authorize an activity that would normally be seen as something that's immoral and make it okay just by giving a permission slip. And I think that's a bad idea because it feeds into the idea that legality is morality. And that's something that we're having a lot of problems with right now in the United States. We have trouble understanding that those aren't the same thing. Now, for those who would say right now, because they are supporters of Maduro, these guys are mercenaries, and you want to use that term to politicize it, I would ask if you think Maduro's security, his close-in security, if they're mercenaries, or the consultants that trained their intelligence guys who caught these guys, who infiltrated the movement. Because they're all contractors or mercenaries, whatever you want to call them. They work for Wagner, a company out of Russia. This industry has changed a lot. It has become very corporatized. It is a facet of modern international relations. Probably not a good thing, but that's where we're at. If we want to curtail it, it would be a good idea to not allow it to be politicized in the sense of good guys are contractors and bad guys are mercenaries. If you want to use the legal thing about whether or not they have a permission slip, fine. But if you don't care about that, you need to use the same term for both. I don't particularly care which term it is. But if the permission slip doesn't change your opinion of the action, you should decide on one and apply it across the board. Otherwise, you're reinforcing the idea that the government can legitimize a behavior that you would normally view as immoral by simply saying it's okay. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good night.